baseball lifestyle. It's my lifestyle.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of The Grounds Crew. I'm your host, Josh Gerson, along with my co-host,
Bill Rom. What up?
As always, we appreciate your support. Make sure you like and subscribe. Toss us a review. Leave us a comment. All of that good stuff. Big news in baseball. There's going to be a documentary made about the captain, Derek Jeter. It's going to be called The Captain by the producers that made The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary. It's coming out next year. Should be very interesting, but I know a lot of people were kind of unsure how they feel about it, especially because there's some people who don't think Derek Jeter is
I
as
have
good as
no
he
clue
was.
why this is being made.
Tell us.
I have some clue why it's being made.
Mm-hmm.
It's because he's from New York,
Yep.
and they know enough Yankees fans will pour their soul into watching it that they can just make it, sit back and relax. And also because they know it's so controversial that people like us will yell about why was it ever made in the first place.
Yep.
So in a bubble, why is Derek Jeter having a 6-piece documentary on himself?
Like, why do people want it?
Yeah, was he the best shortstop of his era?
Statistically, no. Period.
So I don't want any delineators. Was he the best shortstop of his era?
No.
So he wasn't even at his own position. Was he the best player in the league?
No.
Why are we doing a documentary on somebody then?
It's a good question, Bill. But
Are we going to talk about the struggle buses that was the whole end of his career?
I'm sure it'll be in there. Wouldn't surprise me.
So someone made a tweet about it, and I don't know if it was Dennis, and I don't know if it was somebody else. And it actually might have been your post. And I said if they don't talk about him being the worst defensive shortstop of his era, then it immediately can't be better than a C+ as an entire documentary series. Because if we don't talk about how overrated Derek Jeter is in it, then it was worthless. If we only talk about him like they talked about Jordan and the team around him and the winning, because I think that's the bigger part, is you talked about Jordan because Jordan was the team. When you talk about Jeter, I look at it and I say, yes, Jeter was on the team. He had big moments. But, I don't look at Jeter as, the reason they won. Where, you looked at Jordan, that's the reason
He
that
wasn't
they won.
actually, a dynamic player like that. He was a good player, but not the I'm going to run the entire game guy.
And Dennis the Menace Dietz put together a nice little tweet package for me.
Love it.
And I got to drop these stats
Let the tweets rip.
for every Yankees fan out there.
Oh, boy.
To sit in and let it marinate.
Oh, boy. Hit him with it.
Derek Jeter was negative 152 defensive runs saved. Worst in baseball history and more than 2 times the second worst ever.
That's dark.
So you're the worst ever by 200%.
That's crazy.
Worst ever. Worst ever.
Who was the...
Hold on. Negative 66.1 ultimate zone rating, a.k.a. the number of outs above or below average in runs or errors, worst in baseball history.
Explain that stat a little more.
So ultimate zone rating is how well you were able to
cover
ground and stop runs from being able to produce and hits from being able to produce. That's the worst in baseball history.
Gotcha. So he's not a mobile guy.
And so if you don't like UZR rating as your thing, 89.3 range runs rating, which I don't even know what this is, but it says how well he gets to baseballs not in his vicinity, right? That's what this one is. Worst in baseball history, twice the second worst player.
Dang.
A negative 11.2 defensive rating. How he fields his position with respect to league average. 8th worst in baseball history.
Damn.
So, Derek Jeter should have been a designated hitter. When you think about the fact that Derek Jeter should have been a DH or at a less premium defensive position like second base, if he was a DH, his bat was mediocre. If he was a second baseman, he was good.
Okay.
Derek Jeter's the most overrated player, and the fact that there's now this whole story about him is heartbreaking for me because it's not deserved.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't talk about that, like in some capacity, how he was voted by the players as the most overrated player, like year in and year out,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
How pretty much after 2001 he was meh most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't lead to winning without having Andy Pettitte and Roger Clemens leading the way for him. Like, when those things were gone and the other players that supported you when you were a young player in 1996 through the late 90s, like the people who supported him, he stopped being a winner. 2009, Alex Rodriguez carried them.
Yeah.
Derek sucked.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't even know his exact like numbers in that.
Well, I
but I
remember-
think he was batting like 111 or something.
I remember that being like a very prevalent conversation when he was brought over to the team, was that, Derek Jeter's not even the best shortstop on the team right now because A-Rod was there. And, like, yes, A-Rod came over and played third at that time, but I know a lot of people were like, A-Rod could potentially be our shortstop.
But that's
But they
the
didn't
thing.
want to, because it's the Yankees, Derek Jeter's never going to move.
And that's the thing is Derek Jeter would not move, and he Tim Tebow'd it. He was like, I'm a quarterback. And Derek Jeter's like, no, I'm a shortstop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the shortstop of the Yankees.
Yeah.
And, like, Alex goes to third base, goes to a new position, becomes a Gold Glover, is fantastic,
Yep.
is excellent. And people, well, he didn't. Derek never took steroids. Like, that has nothing to do with fielding the ball.
Nope.
And like, pretty much at all, especially at third base. So whatever you want to say about Alex Rodriguez, to then become number 1 or number 2 third baseman in the league versus David Wright at any given time at that point,
Yep.
like, you're an absolute monster player. And it's just like, why with Derek Jeter?
I know a lot of people too. I mean, I just happen to follow a lot of like Boston people, but there was a lot of questions like, why is there no more love for Nomar Garciaparra? Because they were doing a lot of comp on their stats at the time, and he blows Jeter out of the water.
And it's because a couple of things. Jeter was in New York.
Mm-hmm.
They all came up at the same time. Alex was the best player. Jeter won the most.
Yep.
So where does that leave Nomar? You're not as good of a player as Alex.
Yep.
And you're not winning, and you're having to compete directly with Jeter in the same division.
Yep. And that's what,
So you
you're
just
never
got
gonna have that
stuck.
kind of. You're not going to get this kind of clout that Jeter carries with him.
And that's the thing is like this cachet that he has that, he's this is who he is, and he's this amazing guy that always killed it and was always great. And it's like, no.
Yeah. Honestly, just kind of, I was going through the director's Twitter, who's going to be like handling this. I don't really foresee him being the guy that would go deep like Jeter admitting that he wasn't the best player. Although they're saying they're going to pull back the curtain on things, I don't think it will be to that extent.
Well, so I don't think unless they have like a ton of footage, like that's the only other thing I can think is that the Yankees had spent a lot of money. Like they were thinking in their heads, we're taking video in 1998. Well, so what was happening in 1999? The Yankees were good and they were winning World Series, right?
Yeah.
So like if you were that same documentary group, you just pivoted into the Yankees, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they have this behind the scenes, then we're going to see it from that perspective.
Yep.
But
I hope so. That would be very interesting.
I think the challenge there is like the 1998 Bulls was the end of the run.
Yeah.
Was the end of the road.
Right.
If this is a Derek Jeter story, are you going to take it to the end of the road?
That's a good question.
I don't think you want to, right?
Yeah. Because
Like,
it's not that exciting.
It's not going to look great.
Yeah.
Who was he? Horrible defender who started to become bad with the bat, who was wildly overpaid due to the fact that Yankees fans were just like enamored.
Yep.
So again, I'm now very interested to find out the slant they took, but like this to me is just crazy that this is where you went. The only thing I can think is that they pivoted to the Yankees right in 1999 after they were done recording stuff for the 1998 season. And they have to have behind-the-scenes footage of this. And if they don't, like, you guys are just grasping at straws to try to stay relevant after you had a great documentary. How do we just immediately try to
I
get
mean,
this
I think
back?
the fact that, like you're saying, like they had good teams at the time when he was coming into the league, that might have helped them at least. Like maybe it's not this crew that has the footage, but someone recognized like, oh, like we should dive a little deeper into these teams because they're like generational talent. Something like
and
that.
that's my thing. Talk
Yeah.
about the teams.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you're going to position this.
Well, because we've said before, like early in his career is where Jeter really got his like aura and what.
1996.
Yeah.
1996 is where he really got the aura
Mm-hmm.
because he was a young player playing shortstop in New York for a team that won the World Series.
Yeah.
That is where it all is,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is pretty much the rest of the career carried by that moment. Now, he was a really good player, and he made some amazing plays. And you and me have had this conversation. Jeter was a horrible defender. However, Jeter knew where to be,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a feel for the game that we have not seen otherwise. Because his best plays, right, against the Athletics, running from shortstop up the first baseline to pick up a ball and backhanded to get Giambi out.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen by anybody else. But it has nothing to do with your ability to be a shortstop. Has everything to do with your understanding of great baseball. Seeing a moment. What's his other best play?
His jump throw.
The jump throw will get to, I think that's third.
Okay.
Jumping into the stands. Dietz
Okay,
knows.
yes,
He's
yeah.
over there pantomiming it.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I got a picture of that on my wall at home.
so what does Jeter do? He runs a million miles an hour into the stands and catches a ball.
Yep.
That does not require you to be great at your position. That requires you to be willing to sacrifice, which I will never take away from Derek.
Mm-hmm.
He was willing to do anything to
He
try
made
to
the
win the
great
game.
plays, absolutely.
And he made amazing plays, again, that had nothing to do with his position, had everything to do with baseball. So that's why I think he's a great baseball player. His last thing, the jump throw. The jump throw is because he knew he had a weaker arm. And he could not plant during the same time, shortstop in New York, around the same time. Because the player was definitely younger than him.
Yep.
Was Jose Reyes.
Yep.
And Jose Reyes could go field a ball on the outfield grass, plant his foot, and rifle the ball across the field and get guys out. He had
Sidearm.
insane arm.
Yes.
Jeter would go and get a ball in the hole to his right, and he could not plant his foot and drive the ball. If he did that, it would take him too long and the ball would be late. So he did the jump throw because he knew whether I plant my foot or I don't, I'm going to get about the same amount. So I can save time by jumping and throwing.
Yep.
And he made throws because, again, Jeter is a really good baseball player.
Mm-hmm.
But he was not a good shortstop. And I need that to be in there. And if it's not, it's a sham of a documentary. You're a fan of Derek Jeter and you're putting out something that you just want to be known. I just want everybody to know my favorite guy's Jeter, and he's great. Nothing of it. I got to see what the bad is.
Everybody's going to be watching, I'm sure. So, question for you then. Who is a player that you think absolutely should have a doc about them?
So very interesting, and we recently talked about him on another episode.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have an in real time, before it's all over, let's remind everybody before our heroes are gone, documentary about the first 10 years of Albert Pujols' career. Because we've said it on this podcast before. As good as anybody thinks Mike Trout is right this second, his first 10 years in the league compared to Pujols would have won the MVP against him every single time.
Yep.
10 for 10.
Mm-hmm.
He was a better player than Trout. To put that in perspective and for kids to think Mike Trout's the greatest that ever was is because Pujols signed a contract that was for the rest of his life. And in order for him to make money for his family, he's had to walk up and out there and look like a snowman with a bat for the last 3 years. And young kids and young people have not experienced peak Pujols, and I would love to see it because he was astronomical. another dude who I'd love to see is the run for Barry Bonds.
Yep.
And go towards the end of his career where he's intentionally walked 130 times. Like, intentionally, guys, hear the words.
You could do an early 2000s doc on some amazing
An
players.
absolute, like, you're up to bat and the bases are loaded. We're going to walk you
Yep.
and bring in a run. Like, who in the game right now instills fear to that degree?
I mean, we talked about it a little bit. Juan Soto's definitely up there, but not listen,
I don't
nobody's to
think-
that extent.
I don't think
nobody's
anybody.
to that extent,
I
really.
think Juan Soto has that kind of ability, and he's
Yeah.
a young man.
But
When he's
I don't-
27,
yeah.
he might get to the point that he's locked in with a baseball bat like Barry
Mm-hmm.
Bonds was. And guys might be like, I don't want anything to do with this dude
Mm-hmm.
right now. Barry batted like 370 with power.
Yep.
Like,
And I think the thing is too, like the power hitters now are big strikeout victims.
Yes.
So, like Giancarlo Stanton is probably top 3 in the most feared power hitters right now.
Mhm.
But that guy's more than likely K. If you're a decent pitcher, you could probably strike him out. You're not going to walk him.
yeah,
because he's
Barry had such great plate coverage
Yep.
that it was like,
ridiculous.
I expected him to hit the ball. And we've looked it up recently. Like, his on-base percentage was better than 50%.
Yep.
Like, he stepped up to the plate, and there was like a 50-60% chance he was making it on base.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's stupid.
Bonkers.
Wasn't the shift originated by Bonds too? Like people trying to get an advantage on him?
Probably,
I'm
but
sure
he
at some
went
point.
oppo against them and
Yep.
crushed their hearts.
He was a professional hitter.
Because again, and that's the thing is that the guy that Pujols was chasing
Mhm.
was Bonds.
Yep.
The guy Trout is chasing is Pujols, and like so when you start lining things out, like Bonds is chasing no one.
Oh yeah.
Like who's
Bonds was chasing Aaron for a little bit, and
Well,
then
for
he
other-
also for other reasons.
For other reasons.
Yep. But then at some point he carved his own lane of I'm the greatest hitter ever.
Yeah, and again, this goes back to the steroid thing,
Yep.
goes back to a whole bunch of other stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm just counting this up real fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 straight years, Barry Bonds had 1,000+ OPS.
Yep.
For 14. And his streak of 1,000 OPS seasons was broken by a 999 OPS season. And then his last year in the league, age 42, guys. Age 42. In 477 plate appearances, 340 at-bats. So 340 at-bats.
Mm-hmm.
Barry hit 28 home runs, 14 doubles, stole 5 bases, and walked 132 times. At 42 years old,
Oh jeez.
he had 1,045 OPS.
insane.
Like,
just insane.
yes,
Get him in the hall.
get him in the hall. I mean, you guys heard it from here. We'll get him in the hall. So
Get him in the hall.
I think there's so many other stories that needed to happen
Yeah.
before we talk about Derek Jeter.
I would. It's funny you said Pujols because that's who I thought as well.
Yeah.
I would love to see that because the run the Cardinals had early in his career
Yes.
was unbelievable.
Yes, and again, carried by the fact that you had this dude who walked in the door with 1,000 OPS seasons.
Yeah.
And took no
Machine.
time to get going.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I would rather see, and Barry, I get that people won't want to do it because of the steroid thing. And
I mean, they made Long Gone Summer about McGuire and Sosa.
yeah,
you know?
but, like, I want to see, like, the deep dark.
Yep.
Like, show me great and maybe that's something that Blimp has to do.
Perhaps.
A blimp to the moon, people.
Blimp to the moon.
What do you guys think? Should they even be doing a Derek Jeter documentary? Who instead should be getting a documentary? And is there anybody that we missed? Is an all-time great story that we've just forgotten?
Let us know in the comments. We'll see you next time, guys.
Baseball lifestyle, it's my lifestyle.